that came out of our budget to do those color things like that. That came out of budget, so you know we want to use it again, so don't mess it up.
All right, welcome, Rankin County Board of Supervisors. This is our April 15th. We call it meeting. Bob didn't like calling it.
That's the end of the month.
Okay. Anyhow, welcome to our board meeting. I'm going to call this to order and start it off. Craig, would you pray for us?
I'll be glad to. Let's open in prayer. Father, what a wonderful occasion it is to come before you. Think about, Father, so many things. Most importantly, Lord, the fact that you made a way for us to be rightly related to you. Father, you sent your Son to die on the cross. And as we think this week about all of the events of that particular week, Father, our hearts are humbled. We think, Lord, about our standing before you, Lord, that you caused that to happen because of our condition. And out of your great love for us, you sacrificed your Son for us. Father, we're humbled by that. Father, we want to use our very best efforts and the gifts that you've given us to serve our community well. I pray, Father, that these men would feel a very real sense of your presence, your power, your peace today, that they would have the discernment that you so freely give, that they will make good and wise decisions that are in keeping with your will. Go before us today and help us to please you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, under public comments, Earl Bird.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
I'm Earl Bird with McNeil Roads, and I appreciate the opportunity to give you guys just an update on our company's work with the county. Just to review, the county issued an RFQ for energy services performance contracting, and we were selected, and since that time we've been doing what's called an investment grade audit, which is basically where we go in and identify and quantify energy savings that actually pay for the project over the life of the contract. So we are near, basically at the end of that project development, and hopefully we will have a contract ready for legal review in the next 30 days, should be at least. So we finished all the surveys on the buildings. I definitely want to thank Mr. Johnny Jones for helping us out and getting us access on all the buildings. So the steps are that once we bring the contract to for you to review, and if that is approved, then the county will, most counties go out for financing for the project. Most of the time that's done with a tax exempt operating lease. And so I wanted to remind everybody also that one of the benefits of that is that whatever work can be done as part of the project, one of the benefits of the project, of this type program, is that any of the money that's spent as part of that program doesn't come out of your capital budget. It is financed through that operating lease. So, and I mention that because we found a couple things in the development. For instance, last week I was talking with Johnny Jones about a need that he has right now for an air conditioning solution on the old courthouse. And I think he may be giving you updates on that. But I was telling him that one of the, if we can make that a part of the project, then you wouldn't have to take that money out of your capital budget to do that. It could be financed through the project. And there's been a couple other things that have come out like that too. And so we've just been trying to update everybody and let everybody know that that's, again, one of the financial benefits of the type program that we're working on. So, so I promised I'd keep it short. We should have that contract ready for legal review within the next 30 days.
Y'all are looking at every grant that we could maybe qualify to help with
Yes.
this also?
Yes. And if there's any suggestions or something that the county may be looking at that we're not aware of, then yes, let us let us know, and we can do, we can definitely help with the legwork on getting the grants.
Are y'all looking at all county facilities?
Yes, we're looking at all county facilities, any of the county facilities, obviously, where you pay the utilities, because, again, the program is funded by the savings that are created by the energy conservations that actually make the project up. So any of the county facilities where you pay the utilities, and that makes sense to do that right now. Obviously, you got some new construction going on that may impact the use of some of the buildings after that. So the ones that Johnny has said, hey, we may want to hold off on that, we're holding off on the ones that we've been directed to hold off on to. But if that building remains in county service and it's easily added to the contract after it's in place, if the county so desires.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Thank you,
guys.
appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
All right. Under public comment, we have Diane Perry. Diane, would you like to come up and give us a few minutes?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity this morning just to say a few words. I am Diane Perry. I'm running for tax collector. Miss Judy has done an amazing job, 20-plus years as our tax collector, and I'm honored to have her support. Experience, I think, is key into making that a smooth transition. I have and am the only candidate that has that directly related experience. I have 25 years at Mississippi Department of Revenue as their motor vehicle director. So I have tag, title, property tax, sales tax, laws, rules, regulation experience under that umbrella. I also have taught the Collector of Revenue courses throughout the state of Mississippi. I have taken the Certified Public Managers courses. I have a bachelor from Mississippi College in Business Administration. I have relationships with all 82 county tax collectors, assessors, the vendors, state and federal agencies already established. So I think that would be, an easy transition into that office. As I've been out over the last couple of weeks, walking and knocking on doors and putting out signs, everybody says, well, Diane, all you want to do is take my money. I'm like, I've been taking your money for 25 years. You just didn't know it. But when you call Brian Bailey's office or you call an ambulance, I mean, how quick do you want them there? So without those funds, you're not going to have that service. So I just humbly ask for your support and vote experience on August 6th for Diane Perry, tax collector.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you,
luck.
Diane. All right, Ricky Flint, come on down.
Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to hopefully provide some information and maybe get some information later. I'm a new resident of Rankin County. I moved here when I remarried 4 years ago and live at 503 Russ Drive, which is the old portion of Castle Woods neighborhood. But my wife has been a resident there at that residence for 22 years now, since 1996. I want to bring to your attention an issue that seems to be in place with the increased frequency of flooding in the area. There are a number of ditches that converge together right there in the area of Castle Woods Boulevard and Bradford Drive. My residence, my backyard faces Castle Woods Country Club, and there's an intermittent stream that goes just behind our house. As y'all are aware, these big rain events, particularly like the one we had Saturday night, and I would like to also at this time go ahead and tell Daniel Cross I appreciate his availability. I've talked with him on a couple of occasions, emails and visits, and I've been very helpful. Even during the middle of the storm Saturday night, he was able to respond to me and get some information. But it seems to be in relation to some changes in the area. Right there at Castle Woods Boulevard and Bradford Drive, around the years 2010, 2012, there are 5 new residences built on the inside side there close to Castle Woods Country Club, right next to that ditch. A lot of dirt was brought in to make way for the footing of those homes. And it seems, though I cannot say for sure what the cause is, but I would guess that the floodplain has become very restricted right there. As a result, since that time, 2010, 2012, that frequency of water backing up into our residences, into our yards, has increased significantly. Last Saturday night, I had water come within a 1/4 inch of getting into my shop in the backyard. 2 years ago, almost to the week, y'all remember the big flooding situation we had in Mill Creek area and Castle Woods. The water came literally 1.5 inches from getting into my home, and 2 of my neighbors received water. One had about 3 inches, one had about 1.5 feet. Something is going on that has changed in the history of those drainages, and I understand that the county does not have the right to go in and do any work within those drainages, but it concerns me that this frequency is continuing to increase damage and potential problems with our homes, and would simply like to bring that to the board's attention. I'm going to be following up with trying to obtain some more information, and would just appreciate your knowledge of the problem.
Thank you. And Mr. President, if I can say a couple things.
Sure.
Just on, first off, thanks for coming in. And I know we got kind of a mess over in that area, and there's several things that are kind of tying into that full mixture of it. You were correct on saying our issue is going on private property to deal with that type of thing. We're doing our best to open up the areas around the roadways, which we can. We put a new culvert, storm drain type area right almost in your backyard, right there on Bradford Drive. That allows it. But the law doesn't let us get more than 8 to 10, maybe 12 feet off of that roadway itself in that spot. There's been a lot of stuff that grows up in those ditches that's on private property. On the homes you're talking about behind it there, kind of looks like a jungle back up in that same area. That Saturday night issue a couple nights ago, we had the main lake there on Castle Woods Boulevard totally overflow, surrounded everything else. There was no water able to get out. It was one of those deals, I think our EOC director told me we got around 2 inches in an hour. Those pops like that are just crazy amounts of rainfall. We're going to do everything we can to try to get water flow out of there as best we can. Our problem runs back into that Mill Creek side of everything,
Right.
to where we've had so much sediment drop throughout that it pushes it back, it slows it down. We've got to have the water level at the right level at the reservoir to allow it to be able to feed into it. That also helps out. So we're looking at a lot of different areas to try to make it as good as we can, to keep it off the roadways, to keep it out of the homes, to get that flow out of there. Our engineers are looking at it. Our road manager's looking at it. We've got to get federal funding, though, to get into that creek. And without that federal funding, we can't get into the creek legally. There's been spot fixes throughout it. Back in 07, 08, 09 time frame, they were receiving funds on the federal side to be able to go in those spots. It's just not enough. We've got to have more funding to get into that creek, to get that water flow out of there. Also, the additional homes, everything's flowing into that creek, and it definitely fills up. We had flooding in Mill Creek Saturday night. We had flooding in Castlewood Saturday night. We had flooding in Pine Brook off Hugh Ward Boulevard. And we've got some areas that were over the mailboxes at the edges of people's houses Saturday night. So we had another rough event, and we've got to get some funding to be able to do that kind of stuff legally where we can go. So we're looking at it. I promise you we're looking at it. We're going to do our best to get the water flow out there as best we can. Some of those rain events are tough just because we get those quick deluges. But we're going to continue to look at it and continue to make as good as we can for you. So.
And I appreciate your concern, and it is just obvious that as time goes on, the problems are getting worse.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that as frequent as the flooding events become, because even in a 2 or 3 inch rain, such as Saturday night, the water backs up into my yard, and of course I have flood insurance. It costs me $1,500 a year.
Yeah. And the difficult part about that is we'll clear the areas where we can legally go and have those where they flow. It's the areas we can't get access to that backs up that causes us problems on that same side. So there's about a 10-piece puzzle around it, and we can fix 2 or 3 of them legally. We can't legally fix the other one. So that's kind of where we're stuck in a little hole right there. But we're continuing to look at it. We've got our attorneys, our engineers, everything trying to find us some legal authority to go into those spots to get in access to them. So
there's obviously a number of different things contributing to it. It does seem that the floodplain within that area between Bradford and Castle Woods has been restricted with the addition of those homes. And so I don't know if we had a larger culvert size, box size on Castle Woods Boulevard to allow more capacity. Would that help?
Well, and that's one of the things we looked at originally. Can we increase the size of that? The problem is it's got nowhere to go. It's got to get into that main creek.
Down Mill Creek.
And that's where we had it backed up, right there over the golf course. On the other side of the road, on the left side of the road, on Castle Woods Boulevard, that box culvert where it goes underneath there, it was overflowing on the road.
Right.
So we've got it in multiple spots, and we can get it out of certain areas, but it bottlenecks at other spots. So we're trying to find the right solution that we can legally go in and do it. So
And
we're working
fortunately,
on it.
the reservoir was 2 or 3 foot below normal pool at this time.
And that helped us.
I feared that had
It
it
took
been
some
normal
water.
pool, we would have been much bigger problem.
Last year, 2 years ago, when we had the big flood event, the reservoir's up.
Right.
And that kind of compounded. But on top of that, luckily Saturday night we only got the rain for about an hour and a half, the hard deluge of it.
I showed 3 3/4 inches in about an hour.
Yeah, it was crazy. So 2 years ago we got 8 inches in 2 hours.
Right.
So which absolutely magnified the whole deal. But I appreciate your concerns. You got my number, I've got yours, and we'll continue to work through this as best we can to try to get you some relief.
Appreciate your availability and
Yep.
thank y'all for your time.
Thank you, Ricky.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to old business.
Motion to approve April 1 minutes.
Second.
I have a motion to approve old business by Bob, second by Mr. Morrison. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? No, and it passes. All right.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Bob, I didn't get to it yet.
Second.
Okay. Bob has a motion to approve the consent agenda. Jared seconds it. I have a little discussion. Our consent agenda, most of the time, has got a lot of where our people are sending somebody to training. And is there a way that we can include that in, and y'all are here, in like the sheriff's budget or Judy's budget, when they're budgeting, to where we don't come in here and have to put that in a consent agenda, where if it's in their budget, they can send them to trainings that they feel necessary? Can we talk, I mean, we can talk about it, but just for thought, it's in here every time.
Yeah, I think the
You can't?
board's gonna have to authorize.
If they can do that, what are we for?
Well, no, I mean, we put it in the consent agenda, and then we say motion approved consent agenda, yes. If they could govern, okay. All right, we had a motion by Bob, second by Jared, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. All right, Ms. Judy, come on down.
Thank you. I'm requesting approval and authority to pay registration fees in the amount of $30 each. Send 6 of people from my office to a continuing education course to maintain levels of certification that they've already gotten. And authority to issue the check.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Daniel, second by Jay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any against? Motion passed. Thank you, Ms. Judy.
Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan.
John, I might add, it was a good day for you Saturday. Lord held things off for you just long enough.
I think
Your daughter
everybody had a
got
large
married.
time.
Great wedding, but boy, I'll tell you, it was playing with us, that wind storm, but anyway, you pulled
Made
it
it
off.
through it. It was a tornado party. That's
Yeah.
all it was.
Yeah. Pulled it off.
Item A, petition to change the assessment of 2018 real and personal property assessment rule.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Jared, second by Jay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passed.
Item B, request void the 2017 tax sale for PIN number 59979. Should have been exempt.
Motion approved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Jared, second by Jay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes.
Item C, authority to pay registration fees for Ricky McKenzie to attend a continuing education course.
Motion approved.
Second.
All right, have a motion by Jared, second by Jay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Ms. Bridget, come on down.
Good morning.
Morning.
My first item this morning, I'm requesting approval of a copier contract with Rico for the Chancery Clerk's office.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Bob, second by Daniel. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passed.
Second item, requesting authorization to declare Stryker Incorporated as the sole source for purchase of the Life Pack Series 15 monitors for EOC.
I'll make that motion. Approved.
Second.
Daniel makes a motion, Jared seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Come on, Mike.
Thank you.
We're gonna make it by 9:30. Mike, I'm gonna ask you to put 1 through E together, if that's all right. I mean, if that'll work with you,
That'll work for me,
save time.
Mr.
So
President.
moved. I'll make that motion.
All right.
A through E, all approved.
Second.
All right. Well, we've got a motion by Daniel, which we've already looked at these and discussed them with Mike, and they're on your sheets. But Mike Harrison, Road Manager, A through E, motion to approve by Daniel, second by Jared. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any against? Motion passes. And for somebody that don't, maybe you don't have one of these, it's just where we're allowing the fiber optic to go through some of these subdivisions. All of them are fiber optic. Go ahead, Mike, you got anything else?
Yes, I'd like to thank y'all. We had several storm events Friday and Saturday night. I want to thank y'all as a board, be able to give us the tools to go out and take care of these storm things. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department and Mike with EOC for supporting us and helping us get around to take care of the citizens of Rankin County.
Mike, I thank you for being out there all weekend.
Yes, sir.
I talked to you at 2 o'clock in the morning and you were right in the middle of it, and thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
All right, Mr. Parker, can we go ahead and you got, Mr. Parker, you've got 3 minutes and you've used one of them.
1.5, sir. But I'm gonna be quick now. One item on the agenda, and that's all. Andrew Chapel Road Bridge Replacement Project. I'm recommending approval of pay application number 2 in the amount of $54,119.13 to Joe McGee Construction Incorporated, and requesting authority to issue that check.
I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by myself, second by, which one of y'all?
Bob, let Bob have that one.
All right, any other discussion? And I would like to ask, I guess the weather and when it has a whole lot to do with when they're gonna be able to put these.
Yes, sir.
That answers my question. They're
Yes.
ready to go, just waiting on,
Yes, sir.
and we need it bad. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Parker.
Mhm.
All right, now let's do Craig.
You want to do my section right quick?
Yes, sir.
I make a
We've got-
motion, we
we've got people
consolidate
that are
A
coming
through
in.
E. Mr. President,
I'm listening. Yes, sir.
A
All right.
through E.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Bob makes a motion that we take A through E as one category, and Jared second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Let's do A through E first, Craig.
Yes, sir. Those are all, appear to be either nuisance hearings or conditional use. They may all be nuisance. So that's what those are. You're setting those off the same day, May 2 at 9 a.m.
I make a motion on the F to set the date for May 6th.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Bob, second by Jared. Any other discussion on F? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Item F is, just for the purpose of the record, is to establish a date, May 6th, to receive public comments on our proposed ordinance establishing regulations on heavy hauling activities in Rankin County. So members of the public will be able to come forward and speak their piece with respect to that proposed ordinance. Mr. President, item G is a public hearing on the Debbie Durr conditional use permit at Hidden Ranch Road. That's a District 1 property. Ms. Durr is seeking a conditional use permit to place a 2019 28 by 56 manufactured home on Hidden Ranch Road. This is a 36.90 acre parcel of family land. Property is zoned RE1A. There are 2 other homes on the property. This time we will open that public hearing, and I'll ask if there is anyone here to speak in opposition to the Debbie Durr conditional use permit. Anyone here to speak in opposition on that matter? Mr. President, I don't see anyone here to speak in opposition on that matter. This time we'll close that public hearing. It'd be appropriate to take action and establish conditions, if any.
I make motion approved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Jared to approve this, second by Bob. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Only, got any,
There's one condition, Jared, that would be that if Mr. is not able to live in the home, that it cannot be used as a rental.
right, okay.
Yes. So with that condition, that motion
Right.
would be with that condition established.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes.
Mr. President, the next item under my section, unless the board is prepared to move into our other matter, we'll move through my section. Okay.
Let's
Let's go ahead and start.
Start our,
Yeah.
yep, absolutely. We'll come back to my section afterwards,
Yep.
Mr. President, with item H, if that
Yes, sir.
is in keeping with the board's desire. Mr. President, it is with incredible happiness, with a sense of celebration, that we pause here in our meeting to recognize an accomplishment that is deserving of recognition. The board is very aware that back a couple of years ago, Rankin County got a kind of a surprise result in a piece of litigation where a particular taxpayer had objected to the payment of ad valorem tax and had presented the county with an exemption that appeared in the law, that had been in the law for many years, a tax exemption, and suggested that the tax exemption applied to their particular use of property. The county's position was, no, it doesn't apply to your particular piece of property. The exemption is available, in our opinion, and what we stated was the exemption is only available for properties that are located on airport property that actually have uses that are directly involved with the activities of the airport. The taxpayer took the position, no, the language is much broader than that. And so the taxpayer sued the county, and we found ourselves embroiled in litigation for quite some time. Turns out that the Supreme Court decided to take the position of the taxpayer that any use of airport property, regardless of whether it was connected to the functioning of the airport or not, was exempt under the statute. And when we began to look at the outcome, that particular piece of litigation in and of itself didn't seem to be that big of a deal in those limited circumstances. But when you look at the totality of the circumstances and you become aware of the amount of undeveloped property that we have that is controlled by the airport, that became a very big deal. And so we are here today to celebrate the reversal of that result. The effective amendment of the airport tax exemption statute so that it is very clear in the law that the only properties that are eligible for this tax exemption, which is a very valuable tax exemption, and we'll get into that momentarily, but the only properties that are eligible for that tax exemption are the ones that are actually contributing to the functioning of the airport, which is exactly what we wanted it to be from day one. And I am so pleased that we can stand before you and say, we, a team of individuals, not the least of which at the highest levels of our state government, have come together and said, we want to make sure that this tax exemption applies exactly like the legislature intended it to apply. And that's why we're here today. We're here to celebrate an incredible result that we think folks ought to be made aware of. And I don't want to steal all of the thunder of the others who are going to speak. And so I'm going to stop right there with that bit of introduction and ask my good friend and the fellow who has been so helpful to us, Mr. Trey Jones from Brunini. He's going to step forward and he's going to make sure that we know who all is here with us to help celebrate. Trey?
Good morning. Thank you, Craig. As many of y'all know, my firm and I have the privilege of working with Craig and the Board of Supervisors on a lot of different things, and including state legislative work. And it is my real pleasure to be here today, not only in that capacity, but also as a resident of Rankin County and one who has 2 boys that go to the Rankin County Public School District, to be here today to really have the pleasure of celebrating something that is going to be so very important to all of us here in Rankin County for many years to come. Let me recognize a few folks. I know we've got some in the back and also here, so I'm going to make sure I try to get them all while they're coming in. So, of course, Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves is here. Senator Dean Kirby is here. Representative Mark Baker. I'm going to say something special about Senator Josh Harkins here in a minute. Representative Brent Powell, Chris Kaufman, Senator Chris Kaufman. Tom Troxler is back there on the back row, and Dr. Clyde Hughes from Hines Community College. This time I'm going to call Senator Josh Harkins. Did I miss anybody?
School representation. Dr. Muse.
Yeah, Dr. Muse.
You got it.
Okay.
got it.
So at this time I'm going to call on
Kevin Brantley is here from Rankin County School District.
Okay.
We'll speak to him. And Mr. Freddie Harrell, who's the attorney for Rankin County School District. Thank you for being here. We get Tom back there.
Yeah.
Mr. Sessions here.
Get Ray too. Pro schools.
Right.
Can't forget the most important people here, our board member, Sandra Odom, Pearl School District, and our superintendent.
Thank you. At this time, I'll call on Senator Harkins to come forward. And of everybody who worked on this, and Craig is certainly right, it was a team effort from everybody over at the legislature and the leadership over there. I don't know that anybody worked harder than this guy from the very beginning to the end. One of the principal authors of the legislation, working behind the scenes and also arguing on the floor of the Senate, Senator Josh Harkins.
Thank you, Trey, and thank you, Craig, for basically explaining everything I was going to talk about.
Gotta help you, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, they're here today, and Board of Supervisors, thank you for this opportunity. Senate Bill 2802 corrected as Craig mentioned, a 2018 Mississippi Supreme Court decision which gave a broad and unintended interpretation of an ad valorem tax exemption for property owned or controlled by airport authorities, not only in Rankin County, but several counties across the state. The decision took away significant ad valorem taxes revenues that will be used by the supervisors, school districts, and municipalities in these counties, including funds for roads and bridges and schools. The Supreme Court opinion stretched this permanent tax exemption to not only businesses that help in the operations of airports, but to strip malls, restaurants, other businesses that were not intended in the original legislation. The Senate bill restores the ad valorem taxation of property leased by these airport authorities to the way in which it was intended since 1958. The legislation will not completely eliminate the airport property tax exemption. It just correctly provides that to be eligible for the exemption, the leased property must be used for aeronautical aviation purposes. This legislation was vitally important to Rankin County, our Rankin County Public Schools, our Pearl Public Schools, our municipalities, our law enforcement and emergency management professionals. This legislation helped to protect what could potentially amount to about $11 million per year upon completion of development of this property around Rankin County. I want to thank several people that were involved in this legislation coming to fruition. The leadership of Lieutenant Governor Reeves, Speaker Philip Gunn, in the Senate, Senator Kirby, Senator Kaufman, in the House, Representative Baker, Representative Powell, Representative Rogers, Weathersby, Shanks, all the Rankin delegation really kind of went in together and helped to usher this legislation through the process. We did have some road bumps and some hiccups along the way that people were trying to basically nullify the intended use of the legislation. They were wanting to change a couple of words here and there, which basically would have put us right back where we started. From the county, our local government, I want to thank y'all. Thank you for your input, your help, your conversations with other supervisors across the state that this would impact. I want to thank our tax assessor, John Sullivan, who spent hours calculating the potential tax loss revenue for not only Rankin County, but other counties across our state. He did a lot of work on this, and I appreciate his work was significant. I want to thank the Bernini Law Firm, especially John Milner and Trey Jones, for their help. They worked tirelessly. Every time an issue would come up, they were on the floor, they were in the building, walking back and forth, trying to iron out any of these potential problems that would have derailed this legislation. And I also want to thank Governor Bryant for signing this bill. If he wouldn't have signed it, it would all been for moot. So, but thank you for your help. Thank you for your leadership in recognizing a problem that hopefully we have diverted. I know several counties potentially could have lost millions of dollars immediately. I think one county had 41 properties that were located on airport property that could have been tax exempt. And I think the largest Avalon taxpayer was over $2 million in that county, which would have been devastating for the school districts and the counties. So with that, I just want to say thank you for your help, and hopefully, and this is also a microcosm of several other pieces of legislation. I know I speak for the other delegation in the legislature when we say how much we appreciate y'all's input. It's not just this bill, it's several other bills. I get Chancery Clerk Larry Swales has been up at the Capitol working hard on some legislation this year that we helped him with. Sheriff Bailey calls me constantly on bills that are coming up that are going to impact Rankin County. Y'all's input means a lot. It helps. It helps shape a lot of the policy that we pass. I want to tell you thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know my colleagues feel the same as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
We are so pleased to have Lieutenant Governor Reeves here with us today. We want to give him an opportunity to address the board and those present as well. It goes without saying how much we appreciate the leadership of the Lieutenant Governor, what he means to Rankin County, the fact that he is a Rankin County resident. It's an incredible privilege to have him here with us today, and I'm pleased as I can be to give him an opportunity to speak to us. Okay? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is this my opportunity to complain because my neighbor's dog barks all the time? Look, I want to just very, very briefly thank all 5 of you for your service to our county. My mom and dad are both graduates of Boca Chica High School and grew up in Lincoln County, but I was blessed that when they had me, they brought me home to a nice little home in Florence, Mississippi, where I got to grow up and learn a lot of very important values that really make our county unique, but quite frankly, there are people all across Mississippi who grew up in small towns like Florence that make Mississippi unique. When you look at the legislative process and how fortunate that we all are to live in a great county with great leadership up and down this table and of course sitting before me, I will just tell you how blessed we are and how fortunate we are. I tell people all the time, in 2007, I had the opportunity to chair the National Association of State Treasurers. That literally took me all around the country giving speeches to very, very large groups of people. After one of the first speeches I gave, I had a little old lady walk up to me and say, Mr. Tate, I got to ask you a question. I said, you go for it, lady. And she said, it seems like you've been successful in life. You were successful in the private sector, and then you ran for state treasurer, and you were the youngest statewide elected official in the history of Mississippi and the youngest statewide elected official in America at that time. And then she said, now your peers, 2/3 of which are members of the other party, have elected you to chair the National Association, so you've been successful there. And she said, I just got to ask you a question. She says, you seems to me like you could live anywhere in the world you want to live. Why do you choose to live in Mississippi? And I replied to her immediately and said, ma'am, you just answered your own question. You're exactly right. I can live anywhere in the world I want to live. But what I want you to know, sweet lady, is this. I can't imagine raising my 3 little girls anywhere but Rankin County, Mississippi. And so that didn't just happen. It's occurred because of great leadership for many years in this county, and I want to personally thank you all for what you do to make that a reality and make this community so special for my folks. Senator Harkins had the opportunity to speak earlier. I don't know if y'all know this, but he actually has a new middle name. It's Josh Airport Harkins. I won't let him come in my office anymore. But it's, there's so many people that are in the legislative process work so hard in both the House and the Senate. Obviously, Senator Kirby has been in the Mississippi Senate for a long time, Vice Chairman of Finance. Senator Fillingane was critical in this piece of legislation. Senator Kirby, as the Vice Chairman of Finance, is a true gentleman and scholar and a real advisor to me on all issues as it relates to on the finance side of things. And so this is a team sport. Politics is a team sport. Working together will continue to make Mississippi an even better place and make Rankin County an even better place to invest capital and to create jobs and, most importantly, to raise a family. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, this time I'm gonna wrap things up as quickly as I can. I want you guys to be prepared to come down, and we want to make sure that we memorialize this occasion with a photograph, and so y'all be prepared for that. I'm going to ask our esteemed and honored guests, all of them who've come today and have been recognized, to come forward at the appropriate time, and we want to get a photograph, okay? So I want to close by presenting the board with a resolution that acknowledges all of the help that we've gotten. We've talked about our Rankin County team members. We've talked about our friends at Bernini who have helped us shepherd this legislation. But there are others across the state who are also deserving of acknowledgement, and this board is doing so today by the adoption of a resolution. I won't read the entire resolution. You've already heard most of what the resolution is about, but I will close it this way. The Board of Supervisors of Rankin County recognizes that the following individuals and public bodies were among those who were vital to the passage of Senate Bill 2802. The Board of Supervisors of Rankin County, Mississippi expresses its sincere gratitude for their dedication to these efforts. First and foremost, our board trustees of the Rankin County School District and our superintendent, Dr. Sue Townsend. Dr. Townsend expressed her regrets and couldn't be here today. Our friends in Lauderdale County School District and their superintendent, Dr. John Mark Kane. The City of Gulfport, Mississippi, and Mayor Billy Hughes. There's a funny story that goes with that. I won't get into it today. Gulfport School District and Superintendent Glenn East. The Board of Supervisors for Harrison County. The Board of Supervisors for Lowndes County. And the Lowndes County School District and their superintendent, Dr. Lynn Wright. Those are entities that were directly impacted by the decision of the Supreme Court and the potential reduction in ad valorem revenue for each of those entities. I want to stress again that the activities that we engaged in as a team, that the result that we have seen will directly impact the ability of Rankin County to preserve its roads and bridges and to educate our children. Let's not lose sight of the fact that out of $11 million in potential revenue, ad valorem revenue, that has now been correctly positioned, out of that $11 million annually, about $5.5 to $6 million of that goes directly to the schools. That's both the school district and the City of Pearl separate school district. So you've got a major financial impact that has been corrected by the actions of this team. Do you understand why it's important that we celebrate it? I think we do, and I'm so thankful that we can come before you guys today and celebrate an opportunity like this to protect our roads and bridges and our school kids. So at this time, I'm going to ask you guys to come down. I'm going to ask all of our guests, please, to come forward, and let's get a photograph with our board. We also have a press release that we prepared, guys. It's at the end of the table if anybody wants to grab a copy of it.
Craig, it's number of those.
Yeah, I'd like for you. Let's at least Steve come down, because I need somebody to hold my certified copy of the video.
Yeah.
Come on in here. Hey, right here, go nice and loose.
Hey, Dr. Hughes, how are you, sir? Good to see you. Hey, Jay, come on, man.
Steve, right there. Don't cover up anybody. I'd like for Steve to hold a copy. This is a certified copy of the legislation that's signed by the governor. All right.
There you go. All right.
That's a loaner. Flip on loaner.
Senator, appreciate it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Glad to do something.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
I'm gonna try. That's gonna be hard, but I'm gonna try. See, everything's up.
Soccer all
We had my daughter was guest playing on the team here.
I did. You worked at David. I saw him passing out something. We had him on upside down. I was like, dude, turn around right away. He's like, just sit there like this. Had maroon sunglasses everywhere. So
when in Rome, man.
How you do it?
It was actually great weekend. I mean, the crowd was down. I was up there. I was cooking breakfast. I was in the crowd. Poured down rain for about 9.
Once we got in the middle innings of the game Saturday afternoon, it got a lot better. But David had a huge group of people around him passing out stuff in that right field lounge. It was good.
We had a big turnout.
All right, we give Bill now.
Yes, sir.
Got clarity on what's going on.
Appreciate it.
Hey there. How are you doing?
Oh, yeah. We nailed it at 9:30.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it, man.
What's Mike? You gone?
Appreciate it, Trey. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you all. Yes, sir. Thanks for your work,
John. Good to see you.
Hey, Jay. Fred.
Some people
Get over there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you for coming.
Appreciate you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Freddie. Appreciate it. You too. Yeah.
I didn't know it till yesterday.
I thought
Yeah.
we would go outside.
Appreciate it.
I didn't know we were done.
Okay, listen.
Boy, thank you.
Cut out.
Appreciate it.
All right. Maybe we can make it by noon.
I'm hopeful.
You need to sit down, let's get started.
Ray Moore Jr. The lady?
He told, he stopped by me, he told me he wanted to turn it into a room. As long as he replaced it.
Hey, Craig.
Yeah, I just
You want to get the podium back up here?
I use that deep. Thank you.
I can't remember his name.
Thank
He
you.
works for them. John, thank you for your help, man.
No problem.
You already rectified some of the errors before, right?
We'll probably have a protest in August.
Count on that, yeah.
We got 6 years to make up.
Yeah, but I had to maybe we looked at it real close and we had to totally reassess it, you know?
Yeah.
We may have made an error before.
All right, let's move on.
Yes, a couple of things before I get started back on mine. John's being very humble. The truth of the matter is that John was probably the most integral cog in the wheel of success. It was his numbers that demonstrated the amount, what was really at risk here. And without good, accurate numbers, you would not have seen any of the traction that we got at the legislative level. You just wouldn't have. The truth of the matter is also this, and it demonstrates his humility. Some of his brethren were not able to do the calculations, and so John stepped in and helped us with calculations for counties other than Rankin County. So it's appropriate to make sure that that he's recognized, and he's hating every second of me being over doing this. I can tell already, but it just goes without saying that we would not have gotten anywhere close to this kind of result if John hadn't been able to pull together information. That was a very difficult and time-consuming task. So that's enough of that. Item H, Mr. President, if I may. This is a follow-up discussion of our Rankin County Stormwater Inventory Report that's been submitted to us by Wagner Engineering. You guys heard about a month ago, you heard from Sophie Damisch with Wagner concerning the Stormwater Inventory Report that Wagner put together. In that report were recommendations of next steps, and I just want to revisit that issue with you and make sure that we're tracking and that we're not letting time pass so that we can move forward in whatever it is that we're going to end up doing. There were a couple of interim steps that I want to remind you of. One was moving toward or in the direction of creating a stormwater management district of some kind, okay? And so we're kind of on hold with that process until the board gives us an indication that it's prepared to move forward, okay? And so part of what we want to talk about today is, are we prepared to move forward with the next steps? And this is kind of a step that we will need from the board that indicates we're ready to commit revenue, we're ready to commit costs to this. There will be a very real cost associated with it. We think that the creation of a district, whatever it's going to look like, when all of the research and the analysis is done, that process is probably going to take the better part of a couple of years. And so the first step will be this. What is the best form of a management district that we can bring forward? What will it encompass? What will be its responsibilities? How will it be governed? And then obviously, what will be the revenue stream associated with that? How will that be derived? There's a lot of legwork that has to take place before we can get you guys to a point where you have a decision to make. And so what we're suggesting today is perhaps we can at least begin the process of pulling this information together for you and coming up with some sort of recommendation. There's a cost associated with pulling all of that together. The idea here would be, how are these devices, these management districts, how are they handled in other jurisdictions? Is there an entity that's in another state that is operating, that has passed all of the challenges that could be out there, both constitutional and statutory, with respect to its power, with its jurisdiction, all that? Are there examples in other areas of the country where these districts have been in operation for some time, they have a track history, and they survive challenges? We've got to go find that information and get that information for you. And the answer may be that there's really not any. This we do know. One of the first things that you guys talked about, and we talked about it at length, it's not a secret, we talked about it in an open board meeting, that we are at least considering the possibility of a county-wide storm management drainage district. If we decide to move in that direction, we will be, like Jerry Clower said about his first college football game, the first college football game he ever saw he played in, that will be us. There is no other county-wide stormwater drainage district in Mississippi. And so before we leap off into that, we definitely want to be on solid footing. We don't want to immediately invite a challenge or be embarrassed by any hurdles that might be associated with moving in that direction. So we need to get some information together and then get it in front of you. Second thing that was in Sophie's report, in addition to look at how we're going to create the district, the second thing is get on top of the way that you handle flood-prone property from a development perspective. So we've already had a meeting with Ms. Renee's office and others where we are looking at, are we doing a good job of policing, regulating flood-prone areas, and looking at ways that we can address any future development in areas where we can know ahead of time we're probably going to have some issues. I thought it was interesting that Mr. Flint was here talking about development in areas, in our Castle Woods areas where we already know that we're having some flood issues. And so additional development creates additional pressure on our drainage infrastructure that we've got in place. And so we need to look at, are we doing a good enough job on the front end? Are we addressing properties that are flood prone in our area? Those are two right there that need attention now and probably don't need to wait on the development of a district and then move into that. These need to be concurrent, but there are costs associated with each of those. The costs associated with those are very real costs, but we don't have specific numbers that we can give you because a lot of it is going to be dependent upon what we're able to find. If we find examples that make sense, that the board is encouraged to move forward with, we can stop that research side of it and move forward into implementation or creation and then implementation. So it's hard to know precisely, but there will be costs associated with both of those. So that's what is before you today to decide, and y'all tell me what we need to do now.
What do you think the initial costs would be to take us to the next level of whatever it is level you want to try to get us to?
Yeah, so if we can take those separately, let's talk about the creation of the district first. My anticipation is that we're going to spend anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 to get all of that analysis together and get it back in front of you.
And that's to create a structure, a form of governing, and a whole ball of wax.
That's going to, yes, sir. That's going to end up being sort of a recommendation, guys. That we've looked at it. Here's how they're doing it across the country, and give you guys options to begin exploring. That's probably a lot less than 50 to get you to that point. Then, as you move forward to the all the way out to creation implementation, you're in the neighborhood of $100,000 to get to that point. Have a district that you're ready to present, that you're ready to authorize.
And these are things that are helpful to us going down the road to facilitate federal funding, other grants, to let those people know that we're doing our part on our end to address, identify, and try to correct issues.
Two things. Yes, they are helpful for funding down the road, but it's broader than that. Once the funding sources up in D.C. see that we are moving, it's another reason why we're talking about this today. If they see that we are moving in that direction, it gives us a place, a foot in the door. Mm-hmm. They want to see that you're doing something, okay? So I think it's important that we're able to truthfully tell these guys when we're talking to them, we're doing something. And here's the phraseology that I'd like to hear when we have an opportunity to speak on this. Rankin County understands that it has some problems that it needs to deal with, and we are taking steps to deal with our own problems. This will be a real tangible way for us to demonstrate that. We already have skin in the game. We're already working to have a district put in place. We're doing all of our legwork to get that done. We're not asking for any help to get the legwork done. And because we can demonstrate that we are trying to take care of our own issues, then as we are planning for the future, and by the way, they're planning for the future now. They're already looking at appropriations today that are in Farm Bill, that are in disaster relief bills that are out there. They're already looking to see who is helping themselves. I'd like for us to begin the process even today, if the board is willing to do so, so that as they are looking out into the future about future appropriations, they're at the same time thinking about what they can do to help Rankin County help itself.
Is this
And-
tying into what's on our agenda?
Sir?
Is this tying into what's on our agenda?
Yes, sir. Follow-up discussion of Rankin County Stormwater Inventory Report submitted by Wagner Engineering.
No, I was
Item
talking
H.
about him.
That is somewhat related, but that's emergency watershed protection. That is more in the nature of something that just kind of sprung on you, that you might be eligible for, whether or not you actually have a stormwater drainage district, or if you have HUCs, which we've talked about at length, watersheds themselves. We can be eligible for emergency watershed protection outside of this process that we're talking about. But yeah, they are all related.
I realize you'd be the point person for this, but who's going to do all the legwork?
Well, we need our friends from Bernini to help us with this canvassing from across the country. They have access to information that I don't have. Wagner is going to be integrally involved in this, especially when it comes to our looking at how we are dealing with flood-prone areas. And so it will be a team approach, Bob. It will be both legal and engineering expertise. All of that together will be working as one team to move us toward that recommendation that I'm talking about, and getting us in place on how we deal with flood-prone issues.
I'd be in favor of doing something along those lines, but I think we need to set some stair steps in there to kind of say, okay, we've spent 50 grand or 30 grand, whatever, and this is where we are. We're still on track for the 100. Sounds makes sense for us to finally get where we need to be. Kind of an update as opposed to us giving y'all a $100,000 threshold to move on, and all of a sudden, boom, we're back. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, and something that's tangible that we can kind of make sure we're keeping track of where we are and what we're doing. So.
Are we gonna have to create some type of taxing district?
Yes, sir. The stormwater
Is that where
management.
this is gonna kind of lead us?
Yes,
Give us a.
That's ultimately where it's headed, Jared. You want to be able to establish a district that has the ability to raise its revenue and then leverage what it is able to raise at the federal level.
But this study and all is gonna help. How's that gonna help as far as us establishing a taxing
Yeah,
district?
we don't know at this moment, Jared, what is the most appropriate district for this body right here to create. We're not at a point where we can say, let's move forward to establish a countywide drainage district. It hadn't been done in Mississippi. We want to make sure we know what we're doing.
And it's a fine line on those districts on who has the authority over what, because you want to be sure that the districts themselves work in with our plan management on what we're trying to do. We don't want to go a route they're going a different route on.
Correct.
So we need the oversight of those districts with some separation to allow them to be able to act on what they think is important in conjunction with us. That would be the thing I would stress as we go down that route, that we have some kind of tie back into us on the board to be sure it goes along with our overall plan of our road management preservation stuff.
Correct.
So.
If
that makes sense what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't want to get a taxing district out there that operates totally independently away from the county, even though they need to be together at the same point. So I don't know how to tie that in a bow.
This is what Daniel's bringing up as an example of how we need the research to understand how is this thing going to operate, what will be its primary responsibility, what will be the areas of the county over which it has primary jurisdiction, how does that relate to other bodies, other entities that are already in place. Does their jurisdiction supersede this? Does this jurisdiction supersede that? Lots of questions, not the least of which is making sure that legally we create it correctly, and that it can survive any potential challenge that may be out there.
Yeah.
Last thing we want is to be 4 or 5 years deep into something, neck deep with the feds on a project, and get hammered that the district itself is illegal, unconstitutional.
Sure.
So we need really good, strong, underlying research that helps us to understand that we're on solid ground.
I'm in favor. I don't know what you're looking for, a motion to give you the go-ahead to create a framework for us to work within? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, really a two-part process, Bob. I'd like for you guys to authorize us to move forward with the research that we have to have, but also to instruct me so that I can instruct back to Wagner that we need to move forward with community development on our regulations. And so both of those are at the same time. My number, I'm trying to be conservative. I'm trying my best to be conservative on that. My hope is that it won't cost that much for us to get forward
I say at
with the
least
recommendation.
report back when you hit the, this is something Juan will have to keep up with. When they hit the $50,000 threshold between Wagner and Brunini and whatever other resources we do, we need to kind of bring it to a little bit of a halt to kind of give us an update if you haven't already done so. So I'll make that part of my motion.
Well, before we get that far, I just, one of the options been thrown out there, if we do it countywide, to incorporate all the municipalities. And personally, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get in, because I see us as start fighting over funds with all of our cities, and that's not something
The
I'm
problem
interested
is,
in
so
doing.
many of these big ditches run through the cities that exit out into the county. I don't see how you can't help but bring them in, but I think we're fixing to get into the weeds on this discussion that we don't really need to get into yet,
But the reason why I brought it up, we're gonna create one, I just, I don't
That's fine,
wanna be part of
I still think we need to
one
do
that's-
something, whether it's in municipalities or not.
And the secondary side of that, what's through the cities, they've got a different set of regulations that applies to them that doesn't apply to us necessarily on ditch management, lack of a better term. All right, so I mean, Slade's try to give me a
I think
set
that
of
there
vocabulary
is,
that I think it's a little different.
there is a safe way for us to incorporate everybody that, in a way that makes sense, that doesn't usurp anybody's authority. There's ways to do that, and that would obviously be a part of the recommendation. Yeah, my idea would be to bring you guys at least 2 or 3 examples of how it's done in other areas of the country, both where they have segregated out municipalities, but also in situations where they brought them in, and it seems to have worked. So we'll give you multiple options to put on the table that y'all can choose from among as far as moving forward. Again, this is an interim step for us. I'm not asking you guys to be prepared in the next 3 months to adopt a district. Now, we may be at that point, possibly, but I doubt it. What I'm talking about is 3 months from now, we're having the discussion. Here are the options that we've been able to uncover that seem to make sense.
I agree with Jay. I'd be curious to see how that works, because I agree there and also agree with you. So many of the problems leaving the city, going to the county, or coming out of the county into the city. So, but I can see it being a problem. So I am curious to see how, if someone else is doing, how they are doing that.
Yes,
Well, it's no different than road and bridge, and we charge the folks in the city of Brandon, or other municipalities, road and bridge tax. And at our discretion, do we not set how much we give back or what we do inside the city? I mean, don't we do that? We don't, or is that set by law?
Yeah, that's set by law.
Statute?
Yeah.
Well, then we just may have to, I don't know, but I make the motion to give you the green light to move forward. We cap it at 50, at least not cap it, but update it 50 when you get to a $50,000 expenditure to do what you need to do to get this ball moving down the road with Wagner and Brunini.
As far as how to structure a drainage district, I'll second.
So that can fit into the existing motion, or we need to add that to the agenda?
No, sir, I think that's fine. Let's add that as an action item. I apologize, because it was just really meant to be discussion
I
today.
make the motion to add it to the agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Bob, add this to the agenda, second by Jay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Make the motion to approve that item.
Second.
Bob makes a motion to approve it. Jay seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let's go to J.
Okay. Item J.
Let me say, we're taking I and continuing it to a later date. It's just not ready to talk about.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item J is a simple adoption of a proclamation that recognizes April as Safe Digging Month in Rankin County. A copy of the proclamation is attached to your agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Bob, second, Jared. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let's go to K.
Most approved.
Item K is the approval of an MOU with the city of Brandon to overlay a Luckney Road. The MOU, a copy of the MOU is attached to your agenda. Gentlemen, essentially what the MOU says is we're gonna write them a check and they're gonna overlay.
We want to, in the memo section, we want to write Luckney Road.
Yes, sir. And by the way, the MOU specifically refers to Luckney as the project, so ahead of you on
I thought
that.
we did that. Didn't we already do that?
Y'all authorized it, but we didn't have an MOU at that moment, Daniel, so you're approving the MOU.
We just said we would.
Make the motion to approve.
All right, Bob makes a motion to approve. I second it. Any other discussion?
Hey, do we have a date on it, like complete
I think it's this year, this
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
But they're moving on it.
That'd be my only thing. I just want to be sure they don't hold it for 5 years to.
So,
Does the
we'll
MOU
put
have a time
I put a
frame?
time
If
frame
it
on
doesn't,
I mean,
we
there
will
you
get
go.
one in there. If it doesn't have one in there, I read through it, I don't recall there being a time limit, but I stand to be corrected on that. If you guys would like that to be in there,
I'd just like to
by all
get it
means,
done
we'll get it
End
in
of
there.
the
by
year.
summer. I
Look,
mean, end of
let's-
the summer.
Give them to the next FY, end of the
Yeah.
next FY.
Yeah, October 1.
FY 2020.
Yeah.
y'all change your motion to that?
Yeah.
All right.
All
I
right.
just don't want a wide open range.
Did you pick up that, Jessica?
Bob makes a motion. I second it to approve this with a time frame on there, which would be end of this fiscal year.
No, end of FY 2020.
20?
Yeah.
20?
That would say, we're in
Give me a year.
2019 now, are we?
We're in,
2020. I just give another year just in case something happens this summer that they don't get it together, you know.
Well,
I'd rather
I don't
have
care,
it,
whatever y'all want to do.
I'd rather have it shut off by the,
I
you
like
say
whatever.
October 1 this year,
Me too.
personally.
That's fine.
And if they don't, we
2019.
can come back and
Yeah,
see that we had
can
a
have
problem.
an extension if they
Yeah.
come in,
Yeah.
ask for it.
we'll make sure that gets papered up with the check.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. President, with your indulgence, I'd like to pick up item M and then come back and get L, if that's okay.
Sure.
Item M is the authority of our board president to sign a non-binding request for NRCS Emergency Watershed Protection Funds. This is Mill Creek. This is also related to the storm event that we had back in February that impacted the town of Puckett. So both of those are a part of an application that has been made on behalf of the county to seek NRCS funding for emergency watershed protection. We're just simply asking for authority for the board president to execute that out. And if we're eligible for funding, then we will have that available to use.
Well, just for future, I think we need to know exactly what it is. What is our plan in Mill Creek going forward? What exactly, step by step, are we looking for a solution? You know?
Yeah, I mean, the only solution I see, unless Slade can tell me something different, the only solution we've got right now is we've got to get federal legislation or federal money
I mean,
to get into
aside
the
from all that, but
Then there's not one.
what is our goal in Mill
one.
Creek? How much work do we have that we want to do?
Well, the problem is it doesn't matter because you can't get to it. We can't legally get to the grounds to do it.
I understand that. I was just,
Yeah.
what is who's come up with a solution to fix the problem?
Well,
Buster and them.
That's the stormwater district.
Yeah, that's what we're working on.
That's going to eventually be folded in.
So we really
To
haven't
this-
identified specifically the scope of work
Yes.
for Mill Creek.
No, we have. Buster and them have it. We've got a plan put together in a packet.
Yes.
From turnkey, point A, 11 miles all the way to the Spillway Road station. In binders, pretty color
All
coded
right.
form and everything else.
Jay,
Got all that done.
that all started back in the early 90s.
Well,
Goes
I know
back
we've
that
done
far.
several projects in there, but I don't know if I've ever actually seen start to finish what is our, goal for Mill Creek.
Yeah, so there was a plan that was identified back in the early 90s that would tend to address, because that was the most heavily developed non-municipal subdivision area in the county. There was a plan that was put together way back then that involved the NRCS. It was created in a day when we had access to earmarks.
Right.
And federal legislation allowed from essentially the 1992, 3, 4, 5 period of time when it was created
initially, all the way up until about 2007. The way that the federal government was working at the time allowed for individual earmark appropriations on an annual basis. And so what we found was that our delegation, our federal delegation back then, instead of giving us a lot of money as one lump sum and say, go tend to your problem, they preferred instead to give us little dribs and drabs. And so we were able to take sections of the creek over time, identify those with specific earmarked federal funds, and take action using those funds, and then take corresponding responsibility to maintain those areas to the exclusion of the others. And in 2007, when the federal government said there's no more earmarks, or 2008, no more earmarks, that drib and drab dried up. And so because it had been piecemealed over time, what we now find is that the new day in Washington, D.C., the new day in NRCS, we need a full-bore, top-to-bottom plan, which we hurriedly put together, and we now have, which is a top-to-bottom plan to deal with just Mill Creek.
And it's not just the subdivision, because it's Mill Creek's called that,
How
but
far does
subdivision,
it go up?
probably 11 miles. It's going to start back in the back originations of Castle Woods, and it runs all the way to Spillway Road. So which runs
some
through.
of that is undeveloped, right?
Correct. Probably
So-
about 4 miles of that 11 is undeveloped. Yeah. But what this is, you see right here, there's also an emergency wastewater program that's out there, funds, that if they can show an immediate effect to life safety, a house is fixing to come into the area, an area of infrastructure that's around that creek that's about to fail based on bank stabilization,
Right.
that funding then can be attached to an emergency declaration and get it just for that specific, I don't know, 500 yards, 200 yards, 5 feet, whatever that area is. This would just puts us in the ability to be able to request that money.
I think the part of Castlewoods is more erosion control, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
and see what's happened is,
NRCS.
so when we get into that, what's happened to us, that creek's filled up with the silt.
Right, right.
And we can't
We've
get
done
water
a
out.
siltation project
Yep.
there. I
Correct.
mean, I've just heard like weirs, we've done some weirs in there, and,
Yep.
and I've heard, like
And
we were
all,
looking
and all,
to do
and
some
all of those
other
areas,
ponds,
yeah,
so-
and the only areas we can go into are the areas that Cray Slay addressed, that we spent emergency money, not emergency money,
Right.
the
Federal dollars.
earmark
Earmark,
money.
Right.
We can go and we can play with those areas, but those are in. So it's hard to explain to the residents why we can only go to
Right,
this
gotcha.
guy's house and not this guy's
Yep.
house because he didn't get federal rock.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just residents. I mean, it's everybody.
With the bridges under 25, I mean, it's just we've got a lot of areas that are in a mess over there.
What you've just done is to authorize the board president to ask for any funding assistance that we're eligible for. That's it. It's not match. It's just if we can qualify, we'd like to have it, please.
Yep. What's bucket? What happened with them?
They had 3.8 inches in 45
now,
minutes, and it
you've
flooded
got to
houses.
have qualifying rain deals. So you've got to get 1 inch in an hour, or you got to get 4 inches in 24 hours in areas. So when we have areas, that's what Word's watching on from the National Weather Service. If we can identify areas where we've had that amount of rainfall in those locations, those areas, if we've had problems on bank stabilization or failure around life safety stuff, we can apply and we're eligible for that.
What are we going to do in Puckett? Or what are we wanting to do in Puckett?
Well, we're just going to see if we can qualify for the funding, and then we'll go and tend to whatever issues, whatever NRCS tells us we can spend
We
on
have
it.
creeks for bank stabilization.
But we don't really have a specific
bridges.
Not yet,
down there.
not unless
Okay.
Mike's got something in mind.
We've given them specific GPS coordinates
to check.
that NRCS has to go and inspect.
All right. Thank you. Yep.
We're hopeful, but we won't ever know if we can qualify unless we ask. So we need you guys to say we can ask.
So did you get a motion on that, Mr. President?
Let's,
Oh,
no,
we did.
I don't think so.
I
On
made
this,
that
We're on discussion.
okay.
I
We
make
got
a
a
motion to approve.
All right, we got a motion from Bob.
Second.
Jared seconds it. Any other discussion now? And I would like to say that the way I understand this gives us the authority pretty much to apply for grants within RCS, to be in the ballgame to ask for a grant if we have something that we may qualify for.
Yes, sir. If it's emergency watershed protection, yes, sir.
We're not spending any Rankin County tax dollars by doing this. We're just putting ourselves at the table to apply for grant type.
That's
monies.
correct.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, let's go back to L.
Yes, sir. Before we do that, Mr. President, with your indulgence, I want to make mention, your Chancery Clerk, Mr. Swales, had to leave, and so he left us responsible to pass along some good news from his department to you guys. Mr. Swales is returning to Rankin County for 2018 clerk's fees and clerk report, an overage of $64,993, and that's payable to Rankin County. And we just want to say thank you to our Chancery Clerk for running a tight ship and returning monies.
That's the best
to
he could
Rankin
do is
County.
64,000? Really? We're one of the fastest growing counties in the state, and that's the best he can do?
Mr. Mara? Say it again.
Mr. Mara, it's almost $15,000 more than we're probably going to end up spending on getting your drainage district research done.
There you
So
go.
I'm just going to take 50 of that and leave y'all with the $14,993.
That's a
Okay.
good idea.
Sounds
I do
good.
want to say thank you to Mr. Swales for that, and I wish he was here to do this himself. I probably did not do a very good job of explaining all of that. I also thank Ms. Jessica. She
Gonna get a
she
picture with us,
deferred.
issuing that check?
Really?
She deferred so that I could be the one to present all this. So I'm going to give this to your county administrator for deposit in due course. Item L, Mr. President, is our discussion and potential action on our county bond issue. And so we have, there we are, Ms. Sue Fairbank is here, the Butler Snow firm. That could and should be helping us with that, and we're really happy to have Mr. Lynn Norris here also as well with government consultants to help us. Would you guys mind coming forward so that we can move forward on that discussion?
I think that, and Mr. Slay, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess is more addressed to the board. We're not having a discussion today of projects related. We're just talking about what's the maximum amount of the bond that we're willing to go forward.
We're
so
gonna
they
do
can start
16 million, aren't we?
Huh?
We're gonna do 16 million?
I say as much as we can without raising taxes. Yeah.
I think 16 million is what we discussed.
Yeah.
Let me sort of set the table then. Obviously, we weren't sure, from the staff side, we weren't exactly sure what the board's pleasure was going to be with respect to discussion. You guys are going to control that. So what we have to have from you guys in order to move forward is an amount not to exceed, okay, for the bond issue. We have to first adopt an intent resolution, a resolution of intent to actually pass a bond issue. That's the first step in the process. And in that intent resolution, you have to tell the public that you're invited to come and talk about it if they're interested. You got to tell them what is the amount that this bond issue could possibly be. You're not saying exactly what you're intending to issue. You're saying it will not exceed this amount. Okay?
Would it not be that you'd have to put at least like road, bridge, and drainage, the general uses the money's for?
Yes, sir. The intent resolution will actually tell the public what it is that the proceeds of the bond issue are likely to be used for.
Or at least be those three issues, right? I mean, we talked last time about maybe taking some of the money and use it to create our drainage district. May not, but ultimately we may. So we just want to make sure that we hit all the bells and whistles.
Yes, sir. Whatever you're intending to spend the bond proceeds on, you need to disclose to the public.
Or potentially spend it on.
Yes, sir.
Potentially spend it on. What about traffic safety, kind of like red lights? Is that traffic safety or is that road and bridge?
I'm going to defer to our bond counsel to tell us precisely what it is that we can spend it on. I will tell you that generally speaking, this is in my feeble mind how I look at bond issue. You know, your granddaddy tells you don't take your credit card to the restaurant and eat on your credit because that's consuming it. It works similarly. You need to have something to show for these bond proceeds.
Right.
And it needs to be the kind of asset that you end up holding that exceeds the repayment term of the bond. That makes sense to me, right? So you need to think through, if we're going to spend it on things that could be considered consumables, that's problematic.
Right.
Okay?
I don't think.
Traffic lights might qualify. Oh, very good. Yay.
It'd be part of the road project.
Yes. So
And,
road projects are always gonna be on.
So why don't we just list possible building construction, drainage districts and roads? Would that kind
Yeah, it'd be just
cover
kind
everything?
of vague and covers it all, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever, is statutorily authorized, which all of those projects are, and whatever you're considering putting in this bond issue is what you would want to have in the resolution. So that would cover that would be acceptable under the bond statute. If that is what includes
Well,
everything that you think you might finance, and that would be what we would want to describe.
I know we've discussed building a fire station that I know we don't have the resources to pay for, so, without pulling out of cash. And we've had many discussions over what roads we want to do, and same deal with creating a drainage district or possibly spending some money on some drainage issues.
And one other thing on the same, you mentioned the fire station type stuff, but I know we discussed when we were building the road barn, EOC's future movement. Now, Saturday night during the storm, you've got water gushing through the ceiling in our EOC building.
Have we not discussed the roof? Johnny Jones
For
has
some
been
reason, we
sitting out
can't get
there.
the roofs fixed.
We not
but-
looked at the roof
so
on
we're still
that
leaking water
building?
in our EOC
Yeah, I
building.
think we
Wasn't
are
fixed.
looking at that.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, but Saturday night, in
Got
the
it.
middle of the storm, we got water pouring into the
Oh,
EOC
yeah.
building. So
I don't think
guess
there's
my
any
point
issue
is-
about not wanting to do something, but I think we're getting in the
just mentioned
weeds
building
again.
For discussion.
I think you need to put it out there. You can use it as improvements, but I mean, you don't have to label it out.
Yeah, I was just, since we mentioned the building, I was just gonna throw that out.
I think we already, I think we're on that.
So if we
Hold
wanted
up
to
a minute.
buy some generators or change out some air conditioners across the county, how do we need to?
Well, I mean, equipment is a little bit more problematic,
Is it?
because it had, to finance, for one thing, it's economic life, you have to look at it, the equipment.
Gotcha.
Now, if it's part of a building that you're constructing and you're putting in that HVAC, then that's part of that whole building cost, and it's
Yeah.
integrated and you can do it. But if you're just going around and putting in new HVACs, that might be a little harder.
Well, before y'all came, we had this group come in, and they're doing an audit of all of our, utility, I guess, get us more energy efficient, and I'm sure they're gonna come with us a project list of things to do, whether we wanna do it or not.
What about the renovation of the old Chancery building? Does that qualify?
That would qualify, that would be a build,
Oh, we had money in there for it.
Well, in case we end up overrunning over here, back behind us, that's always a chance. I just say, put it all out there for discussion, this may what the money may be used for, and then when we get ready to make the nail
So
down.
if we say not to exceed 16 million, our issuance cost is not gonna be more if we only do 14 million. Is that about right?
No, it's, no,
Okay.
The issuance cost will be related to the amount that is issued.
that's
Right.
actually issued,
Just
that's
make
right.
sure.
Well, what is the, the 16, is that the maximum? You were asking that, somebody was asking about the max, somebody up here.
Well,
Hmm?
I just know that's the most we've spoke of.
I think
Well,
Lynn,
no,
what he
I-
made the comment last time he got up here and spoke was 16.
I think so too, but somebody said, somebody down said
I don't
something
think
about
that's the max,
Wouldn't me.
but I don't think we really want to go over that either.
No, I mean, that's fine, I just said it
I
was
mean, that's,
mentioned.
I asked the question, Lynn, what is the maximum based on your scenario of the millage, doing the 2 years out of road and
People
bridge,
ask.
and moving it back over, what is the maximum that we can do in the bond?
Somebody asked.
Oh, well, no, we have 9 years pro forma. You could do more than 16 million within that same levy.
How much? What's the magic number?
I think you could do 18 million.
All right. You feel comfortable on that number and that we don't all eat crow in about 4 months during budget process?
Well, I have a very, very conservative interest rate pro forma on a 9-year bond. So I feel comfortable that we can do that, 18 million.
Yeah, we made a crucial mistake in 07 issuing bonds. We didn't know the economy was going to take a nosedive. But
And it will again.
Well, we didn't make a mistake, we sure made a big footprint on what all we did with it.
well, I didn't mean that.
All right, I'll make the motion.
Our timing wasn't the best. Put it that way.
Yeah, well,
I'll make the motion that we put a amount not to exceed 18 million for the bonds and go move forward.
All right, we have a motion. 18 million, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Jared. Bob makes a motion, Jared seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any
We have-
opposed?
Nay.
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 Well, you want
Motion failed. I don't like the $18 million. I'd rather go south than north.
Well, you're not required to go.
I know, but if it's out there.
Yeah, I don't even wanna have that open.
I don't want to have the
discussion.
possibility to go into that.
Yeah.
I'm good with what y'all
Yes,
good with.
Yes, sir.
That's just-
Right.
You ask a question, that, you can leave it 16, whatever, I just, because like you said, you didn't have to issue it. No, that's the reason I just said, along with what Bob was talking about, 16's fine with me. We should have said that to start with.
I did.
Well, you said that, but then Bob opened it up again, so. that's fine.
In order to net 16, you probably need to do 16.5 as the not to exceed. That would net you. I mean 16.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Gotta include those expenses in there, huh?
I think we could still do 16, cap it at 15.5, couldn't we? I mean, is there 16
Well, it
million
depends
more?
on what all we get in there, you know. Part of my thought is, you know, all of our discussions before, we were, you know, gonna be taking a good bit from our road department, and I don't think we're gonna be able to function
Well,
taking that much money
How
out
much,
of road
how are we
department.
taking from the road department?
Well, I'm sure we'll get into
Yeah,
it when we
later.
start discussing all that, but,
Yeah.
you know, I know, the scenarios we last talked about, they were not gonna be made whole. They were gonna be left short.
All right, you want to make a
couple
motion?
million.
I don't remember that conversation.
Well, whenever y'all get ready to talk about it, I'm ready.
We just going on with this right here now. That's what
I'd
we
rather
needed
talk
here.
about it at some point, because
Yeah.
we need to get them actions rolling, because
Yeah.
Mike's fixing to walk up into summer
Yep.
where stuff's
Oh,
gotta
we need
happen,
to.
or we're gonna
We need
flinch
to get
and
going.
miss the whole
That's
deal.
more than his budget.
Well, we're spending
Well,
more money
if-
on these two projects too, that we're not gonna be able to recoup. You know, the longer we put it down the road, further, you know, the more money we're spending.
I'd rather not kick it down the campaign. I mean, we can make this decision here on the cap,
Yeah.
but I think we need to talk about the projects
Right.
today
Yeah.
to get some kind of traction going on.
All right, I'll make the motion to $16.5 million, not to exceed.
What's the between that and 18? It's like 1.5 million.
That's enough.
Y'all are the lamest bunch. You know, let's go ahead and get back in the weeds and go ahead and fund out the 5 million we owe Flo. I'm sorry, 4.705 million that we owe Flo for that foolish convention center over there. Get that out of the way.
It's a conference center, Bob. Conference center.
Get my blood pressure going again.
All right, we got a motion, 16.5 by Jay. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
We have a motion by Jay, second by Daniel. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
Thank
passes.
y'all.
Thank y'all.
What we would like to do is to have an intent resolution ready for you guys by May 6th, which is your first statutory meeting in May. And so we'll have that paperwork ready for you, and any other associated paperwork we'll have ready for you on that day. And then that will at least kick the process off, okay?
All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Take care.
So how come we didn't talk about Clary?
All right.
Why did we?
Not ready.
Guess that's a good reason.
Are we to Ms. Martin?
Well, hang on a second. Are we going?
Oh,
Are we talking
okay.
about those projects now, or
Yeah.
or is that under additional business, or?
We can put it under additional business. It's not on
Okay.
here.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
let's
fine
do
with me.
one and then
I
go.
don't care about,
Okay.
I don't care about getting into it today myself. I just want to wait.
Morning.
Wanda, you're up.
Okay, thank you. We're requesting approval to accept lease purchase financing agreement with Trustmark Bank for the lease purchase of one new John Deere 670G motor grader at an interest rate of 3.02% and authority to execute the documents.
Much to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Bob, second by Jared. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Additional business be discussed. I guess this is Johnny. First on the list here is discussion, potential action, replace air conditioning heating system in the courthouse in Rankin County, old courthouse.
How are y'all this morning?
Good.
Good. Thank you to Ms. Janice for putting this on there last minute for me yesterday.
the end of last week, it became apparent to us that the air conditioner serving the Justice Court and Old Courthouse had failed. There's 4 systems, and they're paired together, and one unit of the 4 is operable. And what we're faced with is, of course, the building's going to be unoccupied, and the last time we had this come up, which was definitely a smaller instance, they asked me to come forward and explain to y'all the cost and trying to justify putting it in the building, putting that cost into the building that's going to be unoccupied. We're looking at roughly a $27,000 ticket to put new air conditioner in the courtroom. And just wanted some guidance from y'all and inform y'all of where we're at. We're still going to have to use climate control. There's going to have to be a climate control system in the building. Even after it's unoccupied, we're going to have to take care of the building and maintain it. Want to bring it before y'all.
Is it not to where they can stay cool currently? Or is this
It's
something
not.
we can put off a month?
It's not. We can't put it off. That's the reason I put it on here last minute. It's one unit serving roughly about a 2,000 square foot room. And when you get 100 people in there, it gets warm quick. As
What
you
is
can
it
imagine,
you're proposing to replace currently? You said there was 4,
there's 4 units.
so what are you wanting to put in there?
Well, just replace them as is in 2 pairs. They're
All-
paired
all 4
together.
of them?
Yes, sir. Three of the 4 are unoperable. They're not operable at all. Only one unit of the 4 is running, and it's paired together, so it would just be better justified to replace all 4 units.
Well,
Are they
you
the
know,
same
we
age?
have an
They
opportunity
are.
to save some money here.
Roughly 35 years old.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Is there not where we could just do partial fix currently to get them by for a little while until we can do this project? Because I know we're going to do some. You know, they've
We
talked to us
could.
about it, so.
We could probably run into there is come June, we 95 degrees outside, and these 2 units may not keep up where they have 4 units in the room in order to be able to accommodate it to provide enough air. So
What
we get
happens,
to
Jay,
June.
if those others won't ever cut off? They just overwork.
I would love to patch them and repair them, but
Yeah.
I think if we get to June and this happens and all 4 units go out in June, we're facing a larger
What's out
problem.
on them?
Sorry.
Condensers? What's out on the units? I mean,
We got one that's got a bad compressor.
Yeah.
We have one that has a hole in the condenser coil, which is not any availability on the part.
Right, 35 years old, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, while you're here, what other expenditures are we looking at in the county as far as, you know, AC units?
Well, our biggest expenditure is going to be the jail. And we've already over the past couple of years replaced a number of units on the jail, and as we speak, have 3 units ranging from 12 tons to 25 tons requisitioned and already in place to be changed. So I haven't got an exact count of how many that are left to be changed, but that's our biggest expenditure. Now, we are starting to run into some problems with our fine facility out at Pelahatchie. I know y'all remember, for those that were here, we had issues with the equipment right out of the gate at the Juvenile Detention Center. And I've got a quote in front of me as well for a 10-ton unit for the courtroom and lobby area at the Juvenile Detention Center. It's got to be replaced. The coil has ruptured, and the price of the coil is roughly half of the cost of a new unit. So
What is the life expectancy on one of those units?
20 years is the rule of thumb.
It's not as long as
20
it used to be, just like
Right.
everything else. Yeah.
But
No,
these
that's
units,
20
these
years.
units were condensating horribly right out of the gate. I mean, within the first summer of their operation, and the inside of those cabinets are rusted and already showing signs of deterioration. And once they start deteriorating like that, if you can imagine, it's losing pressure, it's losing volume, and it's not very efficient.
Should we call Lynn back and tell him 18 million after all?
No. That's sad, it's not even 10 years old yet.
But as far as the roof, if in asking about other
No,
expenditures,
the roof doesn't
okay.
include that. I just want to know what we can used toward this project?
Well,
possibly?
you know, when I first come on 10 years ago, you know, everything was in pretty good shape. You know, even
Oh,
this
so now
facility.
that doesn't say
No.
much for you, man.
No, you taking it the wrong way. Don't be turning around, Mr. Bishop. But, you know, it's just like anything. You get the more age you have on it, you know, the more problems you're starting to have. And most everything we have is 20 to 25 years old. And, you know, I think everything's done its job for the most part.
It sounds to me like, I knew a couple of years ago, we had all these needs for a lot of air conditioners. Sounds to me like we're about to replace it. We've already replaced it.
We've already replaced a lot of them. We've also added controls to 3 buildings, which is the annex building, Justice Center, and the jail, that has made the units more efficient and to take hours of runtime off of the units to try and, pull them out as long as we can. What about now?
What about this building?
This building, all the units have been replaced but 2. And it has new controls on it as well. When they put the initial unit on this facility for the boardroom, it serves the boardroom and the Chancellor Clerk's office. They oversized the unit pretty well. That's the reason when y'all turn the thermostats down in here 2 or 3 degrees, it sounds like an F-15 taking off on the roof and everybody starts getting cold. But it's designed to drop the temperature in the room for that purpose, though, is you have a large crowd in the room, it's easier to cool the room.
What are you looking from us today, Jeremy?
Okay. Just guidance, if you want to make sure y'all are in agreement to go ahead and move forward with replacing these units in the old courthouse.
I also got a choice, do you?
I don't think so. I just know the last unit need to be replaced. Y'all want to discuss it, so I didn't want to leave it off.
Do we need to take action? Do you need an action on this, Craig? Does it need action?
Yes, more than likely, because it's gonna affect the budget.
Do you want to wait and do the budget amendment then, do it, or you want to go now?
Tell him today to move forward. When we have final numbers, we'll do a budget amendment at that point in time. But I
So Wanda, he doesn't have the money in his budget to cover it?
I'm not really sure right now, I believe, so we may need to look at.
Let's authorize him to move forward, get all his ducks in a row, specific numbers. We will do a budget amendment and move forward.
There was some, and I really don't want to get back down the weeds on this one either, but there was some talk about when we built the new courthouse across over here, we were using some fancy new air conditioning system that nobody knows how to work on except a certain number of people. So we're not doing that with this replacement. So we're doing stuff to just do a good basic commercial contractor can come in and make repairs too.
That's right.
Okay, all right, just make sure.
So did we end up going that way with the new?
Oh yeah, we're doing some fancy air conditioning system over there. Only folks from Harvard can work on. You know.
You talk because it's the what is it, chiller? Is that what they're? On that is the new system on there. Isn't it going to be like a chiller?
It's independent chillers. There's not one chiller like on the Justice Center. It has phases of chiller systems in it. For each floor, and I think it's quartered up, if you will. But chiller systems are a longer lifespan on a chiller system. But the problem we have with this facility, and I went over it with the engineers when they were going over this, and I asked them not to do it, but
yeah, they went on deaf ear. They just went ahead and did it anyway.
Right, when you put multiple chiller systems in a facility, I mean, you just have multiple headaches.
I thought they were just doing one. I didn't know they were doing multiple. But I remember talking about it.
Three boards somehow have to deal with that. That's their problem.
And just so y'all know,
don't throw us under the bus.
And just so y'all know, it's the same type of equipment that's on Juvenile Detention Center. It is York equipment. So just get ready. It's just going to continue.
Yeah, I know places have been. Well, I know some that said do not get York, and they get it anyway.
I know. I told them point blank. I would prefer not to use York. It's not my decision. Right. They asked me a preference, and I told them.
Well,
if it would have been my decision, I'd have said no, period. But
train.
Do we not have any choice in this?
Apparently not, because they bid it out that way.
I didn't know. I thought it was a chiller. I didn't know they were doing.
There was some discussion, very limited, but it never got really a lot of traction when it was brought up. Obviously, so.
Well, one good thing about it is there's no equipment on the roof.
I see what he's saying.
Oh well, that's huge then. Okay.
Right. There's no equipment around. The air handlers are sitting in a closet right behind the judge's bench. So that's gonna be interesting too. I could just go on and on, but I'm not going to. But anyway,
Well, let's
where
move-
we at on the old
let's
courthouse?
Let's move forward, and I guess to be safe, go ahead and I'll make a motion that we allow Johnny to go out and get more information, cost and this type thing, and see how it works in his budget and bring it back to us.
There's no reason to bring it back to us for
I
approval.
have
We can just go ahead and
one
do it.
quote. I'm gonna turn it over to Miss Bridget. I think if we look, and I'm in the budget, I think I don't know if we go under buildings, Miss Bridget would know that answer. Under our buildings items, there is a pretty significant amount left there that could be moved, or how that would need to work.
Anyway,
If we're doing it according to bid laws and Bridget's good to sign off on it, there's no reason to him to come back for approval to go ahead and pull the trigger on the AC.
So you-
We'll have to do the budget amendment maybe.
go ahead and include the budget amendment.
Yeah. We can do
Possible
that.
budget amendment.
In a possible, make that motion?
Yeah.
I'll make the motion. Well, Steve, you want to do it?
All right.
Um,
All right, I'm making the motion that Bridget research this budget and make it work to where we are within our rights to move money from one area to another to pay for this. I'm listening, Bob.
Go ahead. I think we should. We need to make sure you got the money regardless. We need
Right.
to budget amendment
That's
to
right.
put money in his budget to do it.
Or to move from
We're
one
doing
to
that too, right?
I think that's what he just said.
All right,
Yeah, okay.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I've made the motion, Jared second, all in favor? I think we discussed it a good bit.
Thank you, Johnny.
All right, do we have a need for executive
You
session?
know, I have
Whoa.
one item for discussion, or just informational purposes that I think is important. Craig, our architect on the courthouse system, or on the courthouse, had gotten a price and had a landscape architect design a landscape plan. And we went out for bid, our contractor got the bid. He's now come in, hired a different landscape architect, and they have designed it, from what I understand, with plants that will not sustain in the environment that we're putting them in. So,
Really?
yeah.
I thought we were doing that as a separate line item.
We were.
So,
Wasn't that separate,
how
though?
can we address that so that
I
whoever
thought
puts,
we had approval
whoever
on that.
nope, it's in the bid. So the contractor gets to select whoever he wants to put in it, to put whatever plants, but I would think we ought to have some say in to which plants go there, not necessarily who puts them in.
So my recollection is that you guys had you had an allowance for landscaping. I don't remember what the number was.
150,000.
Okay, and that was going to, essentially that was going to be looked at the end.
What I
So I
thought.
think that's where we are.
We're here
We've got
now.
an allowance. Yeah, so you just want some inquiry made into how did we get to this point?
No, I just want to make sure that whoever puts these plants in it, they're going to be warranting them for 2 to 3 years.
You just don't want to put a plant that won't sustain our temperature,
Yeah.
our climate.
Cause we had I was hoping to get a local contractor all along, try to get some of this business, but they're going with a group out of Macomb and got the architect out of Olive Branch to design the new plan. And so, but the
Who did that,
original
the contractor?
architect that they hired out of Madison looked at it and said, this ain't gonna do.
The
So,
contractor's done this?
yes.
Okay.
We will inquire and ask our
You know,
architect to step in. and
My
get
guess is
information.
they're gonna be coming to us for some flex time. You
Well,
know?
I'll give them another day.
That's why I just wanted to bring it to everybody's
That may be an
attention.
opportunity.
I was
to
over here the other
say,
day at 4 o'clock, it wasn't anything happening over there. I think it was Thursday last
I'm
week.
very interested to see
Nothing.
what you're going to do, when you say, no, you can't have any more time, and they walk off the job. But that's neither here nor there. So, executive session?
Wait, what,
Hey, we're still on additional business, right?
yeah,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
go.
Now, I just had 2 questions. One, if maybe the board can tell me, or Ms. Wannick, if somebody can tell me, where are we at on the Cleary Fire Station?
How did we
just want to hold up on it.
I mean, how did we leave it last week? I couldn't remember what motion we made. I was still kind of confused on that.
We weren't doing anything yet.
We're not doing anything yet on it? Okay. I mean,
Well, no, not really. We getting
We
some.
made a motion to move forward,
Yeah.
get prices on what it costs us to get it
Yeah,
done.
and I'm not ready yet. That's
Okay,
why
so-
I just put it off.
that's what I'm saying. So it's,
I just want to hold up probably maybe next time.
All right. There's
All right,
one
Mr.
oth-
Gaines.
One other thing on additional business. Miss Judy has,
Oh,
something
no,
to
we
talk
don't need to talk to her.
She had her shot back at the first part of the meeting. I'm
I got
sure
a
she
good
wants
feeling
something
what
else.
this is gonna be.
No. Can you just say no to Ms. Fortenberry?
Does it cost money?
What is this?
Not free, is it?
Budget? Yeah, 2. It's supposed to be 2 or just.
I have no idea.